Welcome to Rising Tide Startups, where today's most exciting solopreneurs share their startup stories. They also deliver tangible strategies that they would implement personally if starting their business over today. Each episode is a startup masterclass. Make sure you take notes. Take it away, Kevin.
This is Kevin Pruitt with another episode of Rising Tide Startups, and my guest today is Benny Nachman. Benny, thanks for joining us on Rising Tide.
Happy to be here, man. Thank you for inviting me.
It's been, we've had a little chat off camera before we hit the record button, and kind of did a little reminiscing and geographically of places we've been and together. But Benny, tell our listeners a little bit about yourself.
Sure, it's my favorite subject. So you can hear from my accent. Well, you couldn't hear from my accent, but normally, so some people can hear from my accent that I was born and raised in Israel. I've been here in the US for about 15 years, a little bit in Canada before, spent some time in London as well. I was an attorney by profession. I always ask people, don't hold it against me. I haven't practiced in many, many years. But when I did a little bit of corporate law and some banking law. But I think at heart, what I am is I'm an entrepreneur, and that's my passion. It's always been my passion. I had a small company when I was in law school, when I was a kid. It was my first kind of foray into the startup world, and it was in the education space. It was teaching people SATs and GMAT. I used to teach SATs, so that's how I got that. But so what happened is that I finished law school and I started practicing, and through my practice I got introduced to the fintech world when it was not even called fintech yet. It was early 2000s, and one of my clients was a company that was what today is referred to as a PSP, a payment service provider, and they were a gateway. They had a software that connects merchants to banks, and this is really when kind of e-commerce started really roaring back, or maybe even starting to really take off, because it started very slowly, and when the .com kind of bubble burst and everything died down, and e-commerce but then in around 2002-3 it started kind of rising up again, and technology became a little bit better and more secure. So that's when I got involved, and it started through my client. And over the next few years, like from 2003 to 2006, I got more and more involved, and I started doing business development for that PSP. And in 2006, we sold to our biggest client. And at this point, I'm already here in the US. Well, not here now, in the East Coast. I was living in California, in Silicon Valley, and I basically became unemployed. So nice unemployed. I made some money, but
but
still,
most people don't consider exits unemployed, but yeah.
Oh, it wasn't really an exit. It wasn't that big of an amount, and I was a super small shareholder. I didn't make a lot of money. It was more for the experience, but I found myself in a place that I wasn't sure what to do next. Do I go back to become an attorney? I had an offer to join McKinsey, but from here and there, I started thinking to myself, as often happens to me, how can I do this better than those other idiots that don't understand?
That is a true entrepreneur.
Of course, that's what everybody.
Exactly right.
So it's so funny. I often talk about this with my wife. Is that now I'm old enough to know that it's not true, meaning that I don't know better than other people. So intellectually I know it, but I still believe it. It's kind of it's a paradox. But so I started thinking to myself, if I could have a payments company, but without the dependency on the acquiring banks. So part of what I did for that company is that I was helping the relationships between the company, between the gateway or the PSP and the acquiring banks that were in our back end. And one of the things that I saw is that how old-fashioned, how really legacy the platforms were, and how legacy the banks were in their thought, in the way that they understood. And all of this is around online. So in the physical point of sale world, when you go to somewhere, to a restaurant, to a gas station, whatever it is, and you physically there and you pay with your card, it's all good. It works, the systems are good, it's all good. But when it came time for online, it wasn't really, it wasn't that high level. And I started thinking to myself, if I could find a way to do this, but without needing the big banks. And it was very naive, very childish almost. So I started a company called Credoax, and that was 2007. And I started and I kind of rolled with it. And I was the founder and the CEO until 2016. In
Wow, that's a good
2016,
run. That's
it's
9
a long
years,
run.
9 or 10 years. Yeah.
So I'm still involved. So I'm today the chairman of the board. I'm still quite a large shareholder, and company has been very successful. We were very lucky, and
What was the name of the
we
company
employ
again?
Credorax, Credorax, from
Okay.
credo, which is in Latin having faith,
Right.
and rax, which is in Old English bringing your hand forward like to shake hands.
Okay.
Um, and so today we employ about 330 people, something like that. We have bank licenses all over the world. So from not wanting to depending on other banks, we started our own. We serve thousands of merchants. We do billions of dollars of processing, probably do more than 10 billion of processing volume this year. So company has been very, very nice and successful. In 2016, I took kind of again I left the day-to-day management. Again, I'm the chairman of the board, so I'm still involved, but not on a daily basis.
Right.
And and I took some time off. And again, I found myself after a year or so bored and saying, okay, what now? So after I swore that I'm never going to start another startup and promised my wife that I'm not going to do that in middle of 2017 or towards the end of 2017, really, I started again. And this company is called Jassby, Jassby, and it's still a fintech, but it's very different from Credoax. So we are more into the issuing, and we are more into helping families, and we are more into consumer, or completely into consumer. And the aim is to help bring financial literacy to the youth in the United States and to families in the United States. And I sometimes I tell people I want to bring the gospel of financial literacy, which I think is something that we need. So it was a very long-winded answer
No,
to your question.
absolutely. I mean, you kind of combined my next couple of questions
So
in one
yeah,
answer, but no
exactly.
problem at all. But
Yeah.
because I think that the pieces fit together. I mean, there was no point that you could have just said, okay, well, okay, I'm going to stop now and pick up later, because it was a continuous, kind of a rolling timeline, that
Yes.
you've dealt with. But so tell me what learnings, what pain points that you brought from your previous company into Jassby, or because it's still in the fintech space, but
Yes.
and it's still in the payment kind of online financial zone, but there's a big difference between the two
Yes.
companies. And so what was that kind of light bulb moment that you woke up a year later after you exited, or after you stepped down, and said, wow, children need financial literacy, families need help with this? What was the itch you were trying to scratch?
So a lot of it was very personal, and it wasn't as often, at least with me. I rarely have a moment of epiphany where, like, I said, okay. It's more a process there as well. So it started, like I think a lot of things, from something very personal. So I have 2 boys and 3 dogs, but we talk about the boys. I have 2 boys who are now 10 and 12, and because of my job, so I for this long time, I was running a bank. So I was starting a bank and running a bank, and it's an interesting. And it's not a regular bank, Redox is not, because we don't serve the public. There's no branches. You can't walk in and open a bank account. So
Right.
it's very specific. It's very targeted. It's very business. It's very processing and connectivity with Visa and MasterCard and pipes. And it's not easy sometimes to understand. Even the terminology acquiring bank, it's like most people don't know what it is. And rightly so. Why would they? So 2 things would happen. One is that because I think of my job, we always spoke about banking and money and cards and credit cards and stuff
Right.
like that at home. So my kids grew up around this, right? And I used to travel a lot. I mean, like crazy. And every time I would come back, and as they were growing up, they would ask me, "So, Dad, like, where you've been, what you did," and I would tell them I was in London for a meeting with Visa, I was in New York for a meeting with Mastercard. Like, I would talk to them, and so we always spoke about money and banking and stuff like that. But my neighbors, our friends, my kids' friends, as people, as my kids were growing up, I started being more involved in their sports activities, and I was coaching the football team. So I got a lot more, involved with the community, and people would always ask me, "So what it is that you do?" And after a while, I got like, it's difficult to explain. So I would say something like, I run a credit card company, like something very vague. And people were very interested. When they heard credit card, it was always a point
Visa,
of like,
Mastercard.
okay, I want to talk about that. So it was interesting that the more I spoke to people, the more I understood that the vast majority of households, money is not a subject that is discussed, like, at all. Okay, but so okay, since my kids, again, as they were growing up and going through the school system, I was wondering, when are they going to start talking about money in school? And I don't know, in kindergarten, obviously it's too young. In first grade, I said, okay, it's too young. In second grade, it's too young. But my oldest now is in middle school, and I'm still waiting. So around that time, when I took like kind of a year off, I started asking myself, like, how come nobody's talking about this? And it's strange. So I started looking into it, and I found out that in the vast majority of states in the United States, money is not a subject that schools are talking about.
Right.
I have some theories on why, but it doesn't matter for now. They're just not. And around the same time, so for a few years, I had a deal with my kids that every Sunday morning I give them a few dollars. It started, I think, when my older was in first grade. And I never had, so half the time I forget, or I wasn't home, or I don't know. The other half of the time I didn't have $3 on me. I had 20, but not three, or and the other half of the time, I know it's the third half, I don't know, something else would happen. And even when I did remember, when they actually wanted something, they would want a video game or some app on their tablet or stuff like that, and the cash wouldn't help. So they would come to me with those crumbled, $1 bills and say, "Hey, Dad, like, here, I give you some money if you buy this." It was all very awkward. So I started asking myself, okay, it's not easy giving them allowance. It's not easy for them to use it, and nobody's talking about money. The whole thing, like, it's super strange. And I started doing some market research, again, out of curiosity more than anything in the beginning. And I found out that kids over the last 15 years have a lot more free cash, but not really any good way of how do you use it. And more than anything, I started learning that what I, again, kind of anecdotally saw, that nobody's talking about money, is a major crisis in the US. Not only, but the US is really, really not in a good place. And it really bothered me, because I think that's one of the things that we really, really don't do well by our kids. We spend so much time and effort and money and energy teaching them all kinds of things that they're never, ever going to use in their lives the minute they set foot out of school, but nobody's ever talking to them about money. Then we are shocked, right? They go to college, they're 18, they apply for a credit card that they know nothing about. They pay APR, which they don't understand what it means or how to calculate it. And then shock, 5 years later, or maybe sooner, they're deep into debt that they
have no
never
idea
going to
how.
be able to pay. And all of this is not their fault. We've never told them anything about it. So it's just stupid. So I started saying to myself, that doesn't make any sense. So how do we make it better? So this is how Jassby started.
I mean, that's kind of the financial transfer side. Is there not also a component about like a reward side, like you do chores, we can, you earn so much money. So it's not just teaching them necessarily financial responsibility. It also teaches them like the hard work and a work ethic, and you have to work to earn the money to afford to buy these things. Like, you said your son came and handed you a crumpled pile of bills and said, "I want a video game." He had no idea that it took 45 of those crumpled $1 bills to make a video game. And I was kind of looking through the app online and also watching another video or interview that you had done, and you kind of talked about that side of the equation as well, that there are a lot of kids now that have no concept of the value of money. That's I mean, my degree's in economics. I mean, that's they have no idea what it means to, how do you, it's this cost benefit analysis, you've got to do as an adult type thing. So speaking of that a little bit, about, are there lessons that you tried to inherently build into the app as well?
Yes. So I want to make something clear, because so one, this is not a non-profit, This is, so the aim of Jassby is to be a successful, profitable company.
Right.
This is not just an altruistic gesture.
Right.
I think it's a combination of both. So here's what we do. What we do is that we say we connect kids and teens, really first grade till end of high school, anywhere in between, and their parents, and also their grandparents, by the way, especially in this time. So we started this last year. Travel is a little bit more difficult, and sometimes because of health concerns. So we really want to make sure that the grandparents are kind of hooked up into the family as well.
Right.
And the idea is that the adults would give money to the kids, and the give money is whatever works for your family. So I see really three ways that families, manage money. And one is that, so some people would say, hey, you get an allowance, and allowance is either weekly or monthly. There's almost no in between. And that's it. Some would say, and the chores in that, so in most families we hear that, and people tell us that they do chores, but if you get let's say a weekly allowance, then chores are expected because you live here, and we're not going to reward you per chore or pay you per chore. Right. Other families say, we don't do the allowance game, but everything that you do will reward you. So the more you do, the more you get. I have to tell you that us personally, like in my family, my wife and I, what we do is we do some sort of an in-between, which I see a lot of people do. So we do pay them, the older one a monthly, the younger one a weekly allowance. And the chores are expected because you live here. Yep. So you feed the dogs because they're your dogs too. But if there is an unusual chore that's outside like the regular weekly things, then we'll reward you for it separately. So once in a while, they help me wash the car, right? That's not a normal, I'm not sure that's exactly their job, So for that, I'll help them. If they help me clean the backyard after the winter or stuff like that, right? So from time to time, we'll do something more. And then the kids can do a few things. So they can save money. They can donate to charity. We work with a list of nationwide charities. Yeah, because one of the things that were important to me, understanding that not everybody is as lucky as you are, and most of us in the United States are very lucky. I think giving back is something super important. So I wanted to give the opportunity to do that. And third, that they can shop. And they can shop. We offer an in-app shop. We call it the Jassby Shop, and you can find it at shop.jassby.com. And we offer a lot of things that teens like, from, I don't know, video games, some fashion, some accessories for tech, some tech, stuff like that. But also we offer a debit card. So we partnered with MasterCard to offer a virtual debit card. And then you can use it anywhere that MasterCard is accepted, which is everywhere, right? So those are the things that they can do. But there is something very deep that happens, and that's around financial literacy. And we're actually, so our plan is literally in the next month, and we talk at the end of March 21. So let's say in May, maybe a little bit over a month, we're going to launch a range of new features, which are going to be even more in focusing on financial literacy. So rewarding you for good behavior. For example, I said before, the gospel of financial literacy, we do very poorly in this country around financial literacy. If you look at the ranking of the United States compared to the world's, all the countries in the world, we are ranked below Botswana in Africa. Okay, so like we're not doing well. I don't mean to insult Botswana. I'm sure it's a wonderful place, but you know what I mean.
Right.
There's nothing to write home about saying, hey, we're doing well. We're not. And everybody that ever talks about financial literacy, it's always in the negative, like I just did, right? Oh, how bad we're doing. It's horrible. Our kids are stupid. They don't know anything. So one of the things that I think my message is one, our kids are actually super smart. And if we don't talk to them about money, it's our fault, not theirs. And the good news, and here's the good news about financial literacy is that it's actually not that difficult. And and you can do a series of very, very simple steps and easy steps, and not that many of them. And you can do so much better. So I give you an example. Open a savings account and start saving. That's not difficult. And you don't need to save a lot of money. You don't need to be Warren Buffett or Bill Gates, or I don't know who. I always use Warren Buffett. Start saving $1 a week. And don't tell me that you can't, because I don't believe you. If your son has a phone, so to use the app, you can save $1 a week as the kid,
Exactly.
and then go to $5 a week and go to $10 a week. Because again, and data showed, and not only the US, by the way, across the world, that one of the main differentiator between people who are successful financially, and people who are less is savings. Are you saving or not? It's so easy.
Yep.
It's so binary, by the way. It's
Right.
yes, no.
Right.
Investing, stuff
And the
like
amount
that.
doesn't really matter.
Doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Start the habit.
Yeah.
Start the pattern of behavior. That's what I'm saying. When your kid is in the 2nd grade, start saving $1 a week. That's it.
Yep.
And then the next year, start saving 3, and the next year 5. But by the time they reach middle school, it's ingrained in them. By the time they reach high school, by the time they go to college, it's something that you do. It's like brushing teeth in the morning. You save.
Right.
Right.
Right. Very habitual.
How would they know if nobody ever told them, hey, it's a good idea to save money? And you know what happens? And again, I see it in my household. They start looking at their phone or tablet, or doesn't matter where, and they like to see the numbers go up. Right. So again, it's a reward kind of mechanism without buying anything. That they, okay, so now they want to do it more. Right.
So how's the reward factor built into the features you're going to release later?
So a few things. One, we're launching what we call a financial literacy score. It's a temporary name, might change, but what it is, it's kind of a gauge that will tell you how you're doing, and also will tell you what more you could do. Okay? And will reward you with money, with points that you can convert into money. Will reward you for doing the right things. So think about it. If I was a life insurance company, and lots of life insurance companies actually do that, right? So if you lose weight,
right,
I'll reward you, right? I'll send you some cash back. If you start running 2 miles 3 times a week, I'll reward you. If you stop smoking, I'll reward you.
Safe drivers,
I reward you.
Exactly.
Right. Safe drivers. I reward you for good behavior. And that's the idea. All around this is rewarding for good behavior.
But see, those, they can prove on an amortization table that statistically, if you drive safely, it costs them less. How does Jassby fund because people are saving? Is it the interest earned? Is it the you have a more buying power that you can actually use for merchants that you're trying to buy products from, type thing? How do you fund that reward system?
It's a great question. So part of it is altruistic. So there is part of it that we
social
wanna,
entrepreneurship. I mean,
exactly.
it's for profit, but for good as well.
Yes. Yeah. So there's no shame in that.
Right.
But there is also, so I believe in the long-term relationship with our users. And Jassby is still a young company, and our users are young. But every young person grows up and become older, and companies mature as well. So I completely would want to see somebody who joins us as a user family with a kid that is now in, I don't know, upper elementary or going into middle school and then high school. And then I hope we'll go with them to college. And then I hope we'll give them a small loan or the first adult credit facility or a small loan to buy their first car. So, one of the things that are happening today is that kids stay home much longer. much later than they used to. They get married later, they have kids much later.
Right.
So a lot of the things that, they take mortgages much later.
Mm-hmm.
So I think there's a long period of time, even after they stop being kids or teens, and now they're young adults, that we can still serve them. And then if they act responsibly, and if I have a history with them where I know that they act responsibly, then it's a win-win, because I can offer them young adult financial services at a lower cost because the risk for me is lower.
Exactly. You have a track record with them. Yeah.
Of
So
course.
I love the model. I let me go all Shark Tank on you here. So I'm Kevin O'Leary. So I'm sitting here. I want to do a licensing deal. I mean, to me, it seems like that if I'm Bank of America or if I'm Chase or whoever the major players are out there in the market, if I see your model working well, I would want to either emulate that and mimic it, or I would want to buy you and incorporate that into my offering of services. So where do you see, I mean, it's hard to compete with the big boys unless you have a niche market that that they're ignoring, or that you're so unique that it's almost like you have the rebellion factor that people that don't want to deal with the big banks are going to come to you anyway. But so what do you see long term for Jassby? I mean, is it a play that you fully intend it to be acquired, or is it one of these that we're really just kind of operating over here on the side, hope that we don't get noticed by somebody that has a large amount of resources that can kind of create a clone of what we're trying to do? Or a lot of questions in that little statement right there. You take it whatever direction you want to take, but there's so many thoughts or questions that are in my mind right now. I love the concept, but tell me what you're thinking as the founder, as the leader of Jassby.
So I think a few things. I think one, and please, Bank of America, don't come, trying
Or if
to
you do, bring a big check.
exactly, but don't send anybody to beat me up. So one, I think that if something that the big banks have proven is that their ability to innovate is non-existent.
For sure.
So, okay. So if you're asking me if I'm worried that Citibank tomorrow morning is somebody's going to say, oh man, like we're going to do a Jassby, come on. By the time they get it out of the committee and out of the budgeting process, I'll retire into an old age home. And
I love it. Yeah.
so that doesn't scare me. And one of the things that we see in the market, and that's not me saying, that's people have written articles about it, is that the legacy banks have completely they didn't manage to find a solution for the younger generation. And so I tell you something, and again, I'm sorry if it's long-winded, so you feel free to stop me. For a long, long time, banks have been around since Marco Polo day, like seriously, since the Middle Ages or the Renaissance. And they haven't changed that much. So, they make us believe that they have, but they really haven't. And once every generation or two, they do something to make us feel better. So I remember when I was young and my dad took me to a bank to open my first bank account. I was, a senior in high school, something like that. And you would go into the branch and you would physically sign a bunch, like never-ending pieces of paper that who knows what was written there. And you sign and sign and sign. There was like 40 pages and they gave you another one and another one. But it actually made you feel very important, right?
Mm.
And that was for years. That was, again, I'm not that old. I'm 47. I still remember it. It's not like, I don't know. Then they said, okay, we're going to let you open an account and you sign for these documents with a DocuSign. It's a huge, revolution.
Right.
But okay. So they managed to adapt to the change, from the boomers to the Ys to the X's. I never remember the letters.
Mm-hmm.
But I think where they started missing were with millennials. Mm-hmm. Millennials hate banks, like they hate them. I always go, there's a research that I read a few years ago, not that long ago, 3 years ago, that 70% of millennials would rather go to the dentist than to the bank. Okay, not a joke. It's really.
Yeah.
And I think where they miss even more is with the younger, with Generation Z, with Generation Alpha, which for the life of them, it's not even, the opposite of love is not hate, is indifference.
Hmm.
So millennials, they hate banks. Generation Z, so I can tell you again, my older son is 12 now. A couple of years ago, we were driving and we were passing near a branch of a bank, and he asked me if we can one day, not necessarily now, but he asked me, can you once take me? And I was baffled. I asked him, like, why do you want to go there? Because it was very strange. And he told me, I've never been in one. Like, why,
It's
what's
like a
inside? Like,
museum.
exactly. It's like bizarre. Why would you, what do you need it? I've heard, so we had one focus group that we had a teenage girl, I think she was 15 or 14 or something like that, that told us that banks are like old people places and that they smell. Seriously. So I think that there is a huge disconnect. And I think that the future, banks as we know them, will change. So one of the tricks that the banks have done is they convinced us that financial services has to be provided by banks, but they're
Hmm.
really not.
Right.
So you can provide financial services. The fact that you're a bank or not is almost immaterial. So who
Right.
cares, right? And this is what I try to do. So I want to give financial services to the next generation, to Generation Z, to Generation Alpha. Why would they ever want to go to a bank? Who
Hmm.
cares?
Is it more financial education or financial services that you're really focusing on
It's
providing?
hand in hand. You can't do one without the other, because I
Right.
think one of the things that happened is that when you try and do financial education, financial literacy, it's normally, again, like how people, when the odd chance that anybody has ever actually tried to do it, it's always with some boring lectures. Okay.
Mm.
So imagine I call my kids now into my office and I tell them, hey boys, today we're going to talk about cumulative interest. 5 seconds before their eyes glaze and they stop listening to me, right? Correct. It's not going to happen.
Hmm.
And even if I force them, they're not going to remember. They're not going to care.
Right.
But what about if now it's your money in your pocket? It's very different, right? Because now it's important. And it's
Mm.
not just monopoly money, it's real money that you can use. You can go outside and buy something. You can buy a video game. So now you're interested, right? Because it's basic human psychology, right? I'm not just talking about something boring. It's okay, here's 20.
Yep. Yep.
And now you pay attention.
Right. Right. And it's in the context that they can understand it as well. I mean that
Yes.
I mean real time. So as we're kind of wrapping up today, tell me a little bit about how, what growth you've seen since you've launched, who's your specific target market, how are you reaching, your ideal client base, what maybe some of the obstacles you've kind of overcome early, just really kind of get a little more micro on Jassby itself.
So we've seen wonderful growth, and a lot of people seem to react and respond to the message. They like it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, the debit cards are new. We just launched them around Christmas, so 3 months, and we see thousands and thousands of cards. So that's, again, it's really encouraging.
And
So
they're
I think
virtual
there's
or they're
really,
real cards?
so we focus on virtual, but if
Mm-hmm.
you want one, we'll send you a plastic one. Plastic one, again, it's like banks. It's
Exactly.
thing for old people.
Yeah.
But what we see, so look, there is a double-edged sword with Jassby, because we need the teenager, but we also need their parents,
Mm-hmm.
right? So a lot of the parents would still be, what, I like, there's no plastic card, we need a plastic card. So the plastic card is more for the parents to be happy. Kids don't use it, or the teenagers, they use contactless.
Mm-hmm.
So again, plastic cards, and this is not me, this is the industry. 5 years from now, they probably won't exist. It's
Mm-hmm.
like cash, like whoever pays with cash anymore. So I get it. I still have $20 in my wallet, but when's the last time that I went to the supermarket and we paid with cash?
Yep.
I don't know, over a year for sure. I don't know even then.
Right.
So I'm not saying plastic card would completely disappear. They will exist, but 90% of people, 90% of the time, would use contactless, right?
Mm.
The card will be like, as a, what happens if something bad happens. But people always tell me, what happens if I lose my phone? And I tell them, you're more likely to use your card than to lose your card than to lose your phone.
Yeah.
And if you lose your card, you're not going to notice for a few days. If you lose your phone, you'll notice in 5 seconds.
Immediately. Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
So you can still do that. So we push the virtual. I think that's the way of the future. It's more secure. It's more,
Right.
It's safer. It's better for kids. It's like completely the best solution. So yeah, I think, I think we're there, and we need patience, and we need more people to sign up. And how do we find people? Online.
And this is, I mean, a kind of a push marketing campaign through Twitter, through Instagram, Facebook. What is
Google.
your primary? Google?
Yeah, Facebook, Instagram, Google.
And is it geographically focused? Is it primarily
United
Northeast?
States.
Okay, in the United States.
Oh, no. It's in the entire country. We have users in every state, but this is a US play. This is
Right.
US and US dollars only.
With any ideas that it may expand internationally at some point in time?
For sure, but
let's get this done first. Let's
Exactly.
figure out the first market first.
Exactly.
That's exactly right. Well, Benny, is there anything that I haven't asked you about that you just kind of want to wrap us up with, and then tell people where's the best place to find you and learn more about Jassby online?
So one, thank you. It's been really nice talking to you. Find Jassby, just go to jassby.com. And again, Jassby is spelled Jassby. And you can sign up and try it out. By the way, it's free. We don't charge for the app. We don't charge for the card. I can tell you that we have some competitors that still in 2021 charge you for the privilege of using a card. So it's very 1984. With us, the card is completely free. We'll never charge you for the card, and you can use it as long as you want or don't want. And so just go to jassby.com and give it a try. And if you don't like it, then stop using it.
So is it a full service bank?
So I don't call it a bank. We're not a bank, but it's a full service financial services hub, if you will. And it's really aimed at, so look, kids don't need bill pay, right? They don't pay their utility bill.
Right.
So adapted to what our target audience needs.
And are there features in it that they can like send money to each other? If like I'm giving money to my friend, kind of like a Venmo type thing.
So that's actually in our next release. It will be under parental
Didn't mean to
control.
preempt you.
Yeah. It's under parental control. So parents will need to say if they want this or not. And another point, by the way, is that parents need to know that the money that, they put into their kids' spending account or allowance account, we call it, is completely FDIC insured. So we actually park the money with banks. And it's completely FDIC insured. It's safe the same way that you would put it in your checking account or anywhere else.
Right. I really do love the idea. I want to get you back on in about 6 to 12 months where you've launched like the Jassby, e-coin, the block, the e-currency, and the next iteration of what Jassby is going to be. But Benny, just thank you for just taking the time tonight and really just sharing your story and the story behind Jassby. I mean, what a great concept. I'd encourage all of our listeners to go to jassby.com and learn more about this great app. And, parents, grandparents, help your kids learn financial literacy. It is so important and so underserved right now. But Benny, just thank you for just taking the time tonight and just really helping all boats rise in a rising tide. Appreciate your help.
Thank you so much, man. Have a good night.
Thanks.
Another episode in the books. We hope you heard some great takeaways. Don't forget to subscribe and leave a 5-star review on iTunes and YouTube. As always, thanks for listening to Rising Tide.